In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Hello, every single one of you. Hi, and welcome back to Ketchup Court. I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighbor Ketchup Man, and this is Source and Order. Right, I cannot wait to get into, this week's episode of Source and Order because we are coming to the end of this particular trial. It has been such a journey, if I'm done being a weird and wonderful, quirky journey. I really underestimated this trial. I'll be very upfront with that. I didn't think it was going to be this gruesome, but I really got to learn how a mother really could be such a pain in the ADO snakes, to say the least, because I did not think that for someone who reported their stepson missing, I thought, okay, she's doing the right things. So what's the issue? It turns out that she was lying to the police and lying to the police in finding the son. On top of lying to the police in finding the stepson, she also lied to the evaluators and was feigning a lot in the mental health exam when she said that she was pleading not guilty by the reason of insanity. So we're just gonna continue with the cross-examination of Letecia Stauch. So not Letecia Stauch, my bad. We're just gonna continue with the cross-examination of Dorothy Lewis in the Letecia Stauch trial. That's what I meant to say. And we're gonna hear the rest of her cross-examination, the rest of her evaluation, and then we're gonna close off on the defense closing remarks, closing arguments. And yeah, we're gonna call the show and then by the end of the show today, I'm going to be revealing the next case that we're gonna be doing a live recap of every next week on Source and Order. So I cannot wait for that. Without further, let's get into today's episode of Source and Order. Thank you so much, every single one of you for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button if you've liked what you're seeing so far. So without further, let's get into it. Source and Order. Let's go.
Despite that, are you able to come with an expert opinion regarding her sanity at the time of the death of Dee?
Assuming that this area is about the time that Janet was killed.
Yes.
She was psychotic at the time. She was not in touch with reality.
So that was Dr. Dorothy Lewis, who was saying that Letecia Stauch was not in touch with reality during the time of the murder. She was also saying that Letecia was also pretty much legally insane at the time. So of course, this means that if the jury were to have found her guilty, not guilty by the reason of insanity, it would mean that she would spend the rest of her life or most of her time in hospital. She wouldn't be allowed to go scot-free, of course. She would spend her time in hospital, and then they'll review whether she will be allowed to go back into normal life and restart normal life, etc., with medications, blah blah. So yeah, so that's basically what would have happened if she was not guilty. But that's not what happened, because she was found guilty by reason of insanity. I think it took the jury 12 or 18 hours, I think. I'm not too sure. I can't remember exactly how long I was told by a trial channel that it was, but it was quite a long time of deliberating, and I have a couple of reasons why I feel like that was the case, and I'll share that. I'll share that a bit later on. But right now, I want to go into the testimony since into the cross-examination of Dorothy Lewis. And this is the part in which she was getting questioned by the state in regards to Letecia possibly feigning these psychological evaluation that she was offering her, feigning it, or in other words, faking these evaluations. So without further, let's get into it. Shout out to everyone that are here right now. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the show. Let's make sure that you hit that like button while you are here. All right, let's get into it.
Often fragmented mind.
That often did. Correct. What I'm saying there is that you get data. In fact, I noticed that in some of your reports, I think there were references to certain kinds of SCID, interviews and things of that sort. But
just
what I was trying to say is that when we make a diagnosis, I pretty much insist that there has to have been evidence that this existed long before I ever set eyes on the person or the person set eyes on me. And very often you will find writings or drawings or all sorts of evidence that somebody has produced, or even signing into hospitals, all sorts of things. And I insist that whatever it is, have, or try at least to have evidenced itself long before they saw me, because you're very open to being accused of suggesting and of giving someone an idea that, oh, they must have this because you can suggest it. And this is why, at least in our clinic, we would search for evidence that antedated any contact with us or with our clinic, and still do.
And that's why you would never want to suggest to a defendant that you're doing a forensic evaluation on that they may have some kind of mental disease or disorder, right? How what you mean by not suggesting?
No, by not, but by just looking back, because you can usually look back and find evidence of, let's say, different names and different signatures. You can very often, you can find different artistic styles and different signatures at the bottom of them. So that you look back so that nothing you did influenced what you used to make your diagnosis. And it's how we try to at least be certain that we have not created anything that wasn't there.
It seems to me that family members might be very relevant to interview with regards to not their loved one.
If they would.
Dissociative identity disorder, correct?
Well, there's one fallacy there, which is very often the abuser has been a family member. And with Marie Moore, the father would not allow the mother to come in or be seen alone. They came in together, would say next to nothing.
Well,
And
I'm talking about this.
well, but family members are not necessarily the best in the world. Far better is looking back at what the person himself or herself has created prior to your
The person
interview.
who created that may have a reason not to tell you the truth, right?
Wrong.
Wait a minute here. You just said a few minutes ago that you're skeptical going into these interviews because people who are charged with crimes may have a reason to fake it. You don't remember saying
And
that?
that is why you would have your data antedate any crime, any contact with them, because you can't retrospectively malinger. And it's vital for everyone to remember that you cannot retrospectively malinger. Oh, gee, I'm going to sign this painting differently because 10 years from now, I'm going to commit murder. Come on. That is why you cannot, that's why you don't just take something that was produced after you met with the person, while you look back and you beat the bushes for any data. Letters, old letters to people, letters to and from, old social work records, old medical records where you signed in for some procedure.
What about a daughter named Harley Hunt that had been with the defendant her whole life, every day of her life? Don't think it'd be relevant to talk to her, see if she saw any signs of dissociative identity disorder?
Oh, sure, it would be very helpful.
So
And
what did Harley have to tell you when you talked to her?
I asked the attorneys with whom I could speak, and I was not put in touch with any of these people, and so I did not use them unless if they had years before made some kinds of notations about the person, that would be kosher. You could.
Well, I actually wonder if Harley Hunt, if it was the same reason as the previous examiner Leandra Torres, because I do remember Leandra Torres saying that she tried to speak with Valley Hunt, but she wasn't happy to speak with her regarding any of these evaluations. So I wonder if that's the same thing that was going on with the attorneys here. Just to be fair, I'm just saying that just to be fair, because I think that everyone involved did try to get did try to get everything, their ducks in a row. I do think that, but there'll be some testimony later on that we're gonna go into, which kind of suggests that actually these guys may not have been trying their best. They may not have been very upfront in their dealings. Let me put it like that.
Probably look at that, but
You say in your book that there was a case in Florida, you were subpoenaed or asked to come and get opinions on, and they wouldn't do what you asked them to do, an MRI, EG, logical testing, and you refused to testify. Remember that?
I don't remember which case it was. No, this was written when, in '86? I don't.
Well, why didn't you do that
I
here?
don't recall that case.
Why didn't you do that here?
Try.
Why didn't you refuse to testify? Because you didn't have done what you wanted to have done.
Perhaps guilt. I don't know why. But
And speaking of that,
I probably should have.
you were to be here at 9 o'clock this morning. Why were you not here at 9 o'clock?
I don't know. I was supposed to be here 2 weeks ago, and I was told that at the last minute that I was not to come until last Friday. I do not know. The timing is someone else's.
And your report was due on February 13th of 2023 with regards to insanity. You know that too, don't you? You know there's discovery requirements for your report when you enter a criminal case of this nature, that you need to give us your report 35 days before trial, correct?
No, this is new to me. However, I did the best that I could. I could not provide you with what you wanted until I got data. And even when I did not get the data, I did the best that I could with what I was given.
And you provided, or at least somebody typed up a report that was given to us 4 days before we started jury selection. Do you have a disregard with the rules here? What's going on here?
I don't think I have a disregard for the rule.
You have an unconscious bias with regards to dissociative identity disorder.
Unconscious bias of what? What are you talking about?
Based on your evaluation, Marie, and all the other diagnoses you make, you go into evaluations thinking, I'm going to look for dissociative identity disorder.
No more than I'm going to look to see whether there is bipolar disorder, whether there is brain damage, whether there is a seizure disorder. No more.
What does crazy, not insane mean?
Crazy, not insane means that there are individuals who have very severe mental illness. Call it crazy, but they are not considered insane because they may not meet the criteria of that particular state or whatever it is, so that they may be crazy as a bedbug, but it does not fit an insanity defense, and the insanity varies, as you know, from state to state, so that you can be quite crazy in one place, but not insane.
So you can commit a murder where there may not be any motive or any reason why that person committed the murder, but yet you could still be legally sane. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's what I said, no.
And you commit a murder that may not have a motive to it and still be legally sane. For instance, a mother shakes a baby. Pulls that baby. No reason other than the baby crying. The person still be legally sane.
And the person be sane?
Yes.
Depending on where this occurs, yeah.
Is that what you mean by crazy, not insane?
That is only one. That's only one small.
There's millions.
What?
There's probably hundreds of crimes that fit that category.
I think they're probably more crazy than insane disorders. How's that?
Okay. Legal insanity is a pretty high calling.
Depends where.
Well, I talked to you about Colorado, but I'm not sure we can.
Now I'm going to have to go look up the exact rule. I take it McNaughton does not fly in Colorado?
Well, let me ask you a question about these reports that you alluded to in one of your answers. You said, based on what your expert reports said. You remember saying that in one of your answers?
No, I don't, but go ahead.
Well, what reports are you referring to?
I don't know what report you're referring to.
Well, there's only one report with regards to insanity in this case other than yours, correct?
As far as I know,
And that's the report by Dr. Gray and Dr. Torres, correct?
did you say one of my reports? Aren't they people that are from your side of the,
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Why do you think they're on our side?
because they work for the state?
Okay. Well, you work for the state. You're getting paid by the state.
I don't know whom I'm getting paid by, but I assume that they're working on your side because you have asked them. Had you asked me to evaluate Letecia, I probably would have said yes. I'd be glad to evaluate Letecia.
Would it surprise you that the court is the one that actually asked the state hospital to do a neutral evaluation?
No, it would not. However, when you ask the state to do this, the state is the one that is, the people there are being paid by the state, and it is usually with that slant, just as when a public defender gets a case, it is usually slanted in that direction.
Are you basing that just because they found her legally sane at the time? That somehow we brought them into this case?
No, I'm not basing it on anything. I don't know them. I don't know.
You're quite familiar, and you've testified in other murder cases where the prosecution actually goes out and hires an expert. That person comes in and testifies on behalf of the prosecution, correct? At Park Dietz Associates.
That's the only thing, the only person I can think of. So
That didn't happen in this case, did it?
I don't get it. I mean, Park Dietz is Park Dietz. Why?
So you have no idea how Dr. Gray and Dr. Torres became involved in this evaluation?
I'm assuming that they were requested by you or by the court to do this evaluation.
You said that you read 100 pages of police reports?
I didn't recall giving a number. I said hundreds of pages of different reports.
How long did it take you to get through all that information?
Hours.
Thousands and thousands of pages, right?
I don't know, hundreds.
Reports from the FBI, correct?
I would have to go over it. I know I carried a suitcase here that weighed probably over 100 pounds, but I don't know how many pages.
Reports from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, correct? You review those?
Dozens and dozens of reports, yes.
What about reports from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? Did you review those?
I would have to look over this again. Because, again, I looked at these a while back, but I did bring them with me. So if you wanted me to look over what I have with me, I can tell you.
Well, tell me what you recall reviewing.
I would have to look at them. I don't recall the name of each place and each organization.
Mr. Tellini asked you questions about him being in an interview room while you're conducting the evaluation. You remember him asking you that?
Yes.
Do you remember giving 3 answers? 1, want them to see what I see. That was your first answer, correct?
Right.
And you knew this was being videotaped, correct?
Right.
Why couldn't they just watch the video?
In my experience, it is helpful for me to have the person who is responsible for the case to see what I see. Another reason would be, I've said to them, try not to interrupt me if you can avoid it, but if there is something toward the end or something that you feel I need to know that I've just failed to ask about, please feel free to ask it or ask me, can you ask it? So that there are a number of reasons why I like the person to see what I see and also to enable me to see what he or she sees that I may have missed.
Well, isn't it kind of awkward because the attorney there is the one deciding to pay you based on your work? Doesn't it make it awkward for you and the defendant to be in the same room with the attorney as you're doing a forensic evaluation?
No.
And you certainly would not want the attorney to interject and become part of that evaluation, which
There are occasions when it's very important, when something vital is left out, and if the person were not there, I would not even know enough to ask later on. So that,
would you consider that to be an unbiased interview if the person who's working in the best interest of the client is asking questions during the forensic interview?
Oh,
I think it depends what the questions are. I think I told you in an interview, I said, look, if you two are going to continue with this, let's stop now, and I quit. Talk about it with each other, and I'll come back. So that I try very hard not to play along.
I just want to say this, right? Because he just hit me. What just happened? It just hit me as I was watching that. In the Letecia Business trial, where Letecia Business pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity for the murder of Chaterion, because she was taking a lot of drugs at the time. So that's why she was claiming not guilty by the reason of insanity. She did have her attorney present during her psychological evaluation, but the attorney was quiet. He was not allowed to ask any questions. He was not allowed to have any input. He was just there to make notes. He was just there to make kind of like mediate in a way, get the information, plan their strategy for trial. That was the extent of his involvement in that case. So for me to learn that he was actually that this particular attorney was actually asking her questions as well, talk about real conflict of interest, because there is no way that should be happening, especially if you're trying to get to the bottom of this particular mental health defect. I can't imagine what world that would be considered as. I can't imagine what world, right, you could say that Letecia is not guilty by the reason of insanity, and then you're seeing her own counsel trying to get into the mind of the mental health evaluator, who's supposed to be impartial, who's supposed to be the impartial party there, and yet he's having an input. That's just not fair. Ashley, welcome to the stream. I see you. She says she's guilty. What is she expecting from this? She's better not ever get out. I hope not, because her trial has been, her conviction, has been reversed. So it's gonna get tried again. I don't know when, but the trial is back on again. So hopefully it doesn't go in her favor this time around. Hopefully the jury do find her guilty the second time and they lock her up for good and there's no more reversals. But yeah, Ashley, thanks for your input, Ashley. Welcome to the stream.
You said the second factor was dissociative cases. There's a lot of skepticism prevailing in the case. Do you remember saying that?
I'm sure I have many times.
What does the attorney have to be in the courtroom to alleviate that second factor?
It's very important for him to see what I see. For example, in this particular case, Letecia's accent changed and became incomprehensible. And it's important for me to have another person see what I see and then say, did you see what I see? Or something of that sort.
That's just
so
bad.
It is helpful.
I don't think that has an impact on the defendant.
Thank you.
Having you tell the attorney, did you see that?
Do I do that? Have you ever seen me do that? No, because I did not ever do that.
Judge, I've asked the witness to allow me to do it.
You need to wait till he finishes his question, and then you'll get a chance to respond.
You don't think that would have an impact on the defendant and her ability to act a certain way based on what you're saying, her attorney in the room at the time that she's saying things?
Could you repeat what you said first about what I said and what he said and whether it would?
Well, we're going to see the video here in a minute. We're going to watch the video.
Yeah.
My question is, do you think it would have an impact on the defendant's ability to act a certain way based on what you're telling her attorney in the same room?
I do not believe that what I do or the way in which I do it on occasion, if I want the attorney to be there or someone else from the attorney's side, I feel that I am more likely to find out the truth than if I'm on my own and I have failed to pick up something. I will often say, wait until the end. If you can wait until the end. And then please raise any questions you have that I may have misunderstood or may have been wrong. But I do this in the interest of trying to learn as much as I can.
Do you think the attorney might have an interest, in your opinion, in the outcome of that interview?
Of course.
Did you have any safety concerns when you're interviewing Ms. Stauch on those 3 days?
I think that just the very fact that I have somebody there tells you that I always have enough sense to try to keep myself safe and calm so I don't have to worry about my own safety.
You interviewed her hours, in the morning, in the afternoon, 3 days in a row. By the time you got to the third day, do you feel a need to have an attorney in there with you for safety reasons?
Yes.
Why?
Well, a case I had a while back, I actually was flying out to Florida for, I forget what part of the case it was late at night. There was a woman attorney with the patient, and by the time I arrived at the prison, the patient had attacked the woman. She had been alone in the room with this person whom she knew well. It's an eye-opener, and it's a lesson, and it can happen. And now here this woman had known the defendant for a long time. No, I don't think that I'm that good that after a few hours with somebody, I am perfectly safe. The other thing is with dissociation, a person can switch on a dime. And if you look at the tapes, you'll see that a person, just as they can switch an accent, and it just happens, and you barely notice it, then you see it, a person can switch on a dime in terms of how they perceive you. And you can be safe one minute. This friend of mine was stabbed shortly before I arrived there to interview the defendant, and I was not permitted to do the interview, and that was that. But no, I do not think that the third day I'm necessarily safe on my own. I would be a fool.
But you talked about someone switching on a dime. You didn't diagnose Ms. Stauch with dissociative identity. 23. Why were you concerned about her switching on a dime if you hadn't made a diagnosis?
Because I don't know when I come and see a patient what the disorder is, and there are other disorders in which someone can switch on a dime, and or you could say something stupid or the wrong thing, and the atmosphere changes. So that I don't know, maybe I'm a coward. But
I don't think you're a coward.
I still can't get over the fact that she believes that her and the lawyer exchanging words and being there is not going to impact the defendant's view whatsoever. I still can't get over that. But what's happening right now is probably containment, probably her trying to not seem impartial, which the ship has already sailed, because on the last episode of Source and Order, where we went through the early stages of this cross-examination, she had already booked in an MRI to do an EEG and an MRI, which are basically brain tests to see how the brain is functioning, etc. And she didn't get the results of that EEG and MRI. She didn't get the test done, and yet, and she said that she needed that test done before she can render an opinion, and yet the test is not done, and yet she still rendered her opinion, which is what she did today. So I thought I remind everyone of that, because it just shows how biased she is to Letecia.
Does everyone who is diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, are they legally insane throughout the United States?
no,
Of course not, right? There's a spectrum.
I taught you that.
I went to school for 7.5 years. I might have picked up a few things. But anyway, there's some who are more severe than others. There's some that may not impact their life whatsoever, correct?
I don't know.
Because you only look at criminals, right?
No,
Okay.
come on.
Your opinion is that something that happened over 20 years ago with Ms. Stauch's stepfather is the origin of her traumatic stress that leads to dissociative identity disorder. Did I get that right?
No.
Tell us, what's the origin?
I do not know enough about what she suffered or experienced as an infant, as a child, as somebody growing up, nor have I spoken with her relatives, friends, acquaintances personally, so that I cannot possibly say that. In my experience, I'm staggered by how very, very early ongoing intolerable torture can create this. And sometimes you can get a hint of when it happened, because when the person is in a certain dissociative state, they may draw the way a 3-year-old does. And it may turn out that as you learn more, that maybe it was at around that time that the major trauma occurred. But it's
Well, let me.
I don't know.
Make sure I wrote down your answers right.
Yeah.
You said the cause is early ongoing physical and/or sexual abuse that is intolerable. Can't cope with it anymore. Mind self-hypnotic.
It is as if you left out as if. It is as if the person has gone into a self-hypnotic state. I have used that term because for me, it makes sense. You will find others, experts far better than I, who may use a different term in terms of the way in which the mind changes. But for me, it is most understandable to say it is a type of self-hypnosis. Because, if you kind of think you are someone else and you're talking differently, it is like a self-hypnotic state. And
Self-hypnosis?
it's unconscious, it is not conscious.
Regardless, you indicated
It's
that
not
these-
self-hypnosis. I'm sorry. It's not, for her to say it's like a self-hypnosis. It is actually such a smack in the face to people that actually suffer from this, because it is. I actually want to understand where she's coming from on this, and I hope she brings it up pretty quickly. I hope she goes on to say it, because people that go through, I've gone through psychosis, right? I gave details of that in the previous episodes, in the last two episodes. You can find them in the playlist. I'll post it in the chat. But I've gone through previous episodes of I've gone through episodes of psychosis. It is not a self-hypnosis. It's like something happens in front of you, like a delusion, like something that you can't imagine, something you wouldn't think would happen in front of you, and your brain literally talks you into it. Like, not talks you into it, but your what happens is, at least in my experience, I'll speak for myself. What happens is, you get it's so embarrassing. Okay, you see the delusion. I remember when I had my delusion, right? I saw something on my computer screen and it was spinning, and I managed to confirm and convince myself that this was an update in regards to the system. Just an update on the computer. That's what happens. It's not an hypnosis. It's just your brain persuading you that you are fine, that everything is fine, that this is all okay, everything is fine. How is that self-hypnosis? I don't know. I don't like how she phrases things.
else happened back when Miss Stauch was 15 years old.
No, I said I know only from other people's histories, and maybe one time where she told me from about age 5 to age 10, some things occurred, that these things have been documented by other people. I am not telling you when. I suspect that we don't know a lot of what went on early.
But we do know that she got a softball scholarship, that she got a doctorate's degree, that she...
Would you explain the doctorate's degree, where she got it and how?
Do you not know that she got a doctorate's degree, Doctor?
I don't know if you count it the same. It was over the internet, and it was like Coursera or something like that. I think that you need to look at that a bit.
You know more about it than I do. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Oh,
No.
well, it was.
That.
I don't know, some of those big boxes.
Watch the videos. It's not in videos.
It's not there. I don't know, but that's where she got it. That's where she says she got it.
But anyway, that didn't impact her ability to go through college.
Yeah, it did. Her college was also, I believe her degree was a computer, an internet.
And she succeeded in life, had a daughter, married twice,
Wow.
right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
Why would you say succeeded, married twice? This is not a victory.
she didn't murder anybody. She didn't murder anybody within that 20 years.
But she managed to marry some really unpleasant people. I'd say those were
Oh,
big
come
mistakes.
on.
And just coincidentally, you come involved, and now all of a sudden, this event that happened 21 years ago is the cause for her killing an 11-year-old girl. Is that what you're telling us, Gary?
No, I'm not telling you this.
Then why is it relevant?
Yeah.
We're trying to understand what happened and why it happened. And I'm just telling you what causes, in my experience, in my limited experience, what causes this kind of phenomenon. But I don't consider her having married twice inappropriate and less than loving human beings a success. Nor do I consider her degrees.
When do you think her disassociative...
I actually hate how she just threw Al into the under the bus there. I hate that. The fact that, like, for you to call Al, being married to Al, as a inconsiderate human beings, like, what did he do? What did he do outside of just try and talk to her to find Gannon? That's literally it. What has he done to Letecia? Like, I have not heard any signs or anyone saying that he abused or anything like that. I'm wondering why she's being so animus towards Al and her previous exes, because we haven't heard anything about Letecia's exes or ex-husbands being violent with her or being inappropriate with her in any way. I haven't heard anything like that. And she's just making these comments without basis for it, really. I find that strange and worrying.
Identity disorder started.
Wow. I don't know with her. If you were to ask me earliest, the first patient in our clinic was 4 years old.
You didn't think that was important for your opinion to give this jury when her diagnosis started?
Only if I knew it.
Well, you know, you reviewed the jail records in this case, right?
But they're incomplete, and they're we
Whose
don't have enough
fault
data
is
to
that?
say when this started. But you can be pretty sure that it tends to be early and ongoing and intolerable.
Well, it started when she said it started, after June 5th, when the competency was raised in court. You remember reading that?
It doesn't matter what she says when she says something started.
In fact, Dr. Torres specifically asked her during the competency evaluation, you answered a question a certain way about multiple personalities. Would you tell us about that? And Ms. Stauch didn't have anything to say. Remember that?
Could have objected to form.
No,
Would that be significant in your opinion?
I would have to know the whole context of it.
In fact, it wasn't until the second competency evaluation with Dr. Grimmett that dissociative identity disorder became an issue in this case. Right?
I believe you. I don't know that for sure, but it certainly could be.
You reviewed the reports, did you not?
I did, but I reviewed hundreds of pages, and I can't quote.
Yeah, I don't know the court. How much longer you want to go? It's about 10 till.
About 5 more minutes.
Okay.
But it's up to you. I understand the subject, so.
I've got, we're going to get into videos tomorrow, so I've got quite a bit more.
Let's go for about 5 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
You indicated on direct examination that it's very common for an individual to split off to take the characteristics of their abuser when they have dissociative identity disorder.
Yes, I've seen it often.
Did you see it, Ms. Stauch?
I can't say for sure I saw that with her. I don't know. No.
Rhea Sanchez has nothing to do with her stepfather. Would you call him Crazy S. James or something like that?
What about him?
Jackass James. That's what it was.
Yeah, but did she turn into Jackass James?
That's what I'm asking you.
I didn't hear that or see it or what did you? I don't know where you're coming from.
Well, you said on direct that it's common, very common, I think you said, that individuals take on a persona of their abuser.
I said it is common, right, and it is common. But that doesn't mean that in this case it happened. I'm just informing the jury it is common, and I'm saying this to you so that you don't say, oh, we're going to get rid of so-and-so sometime because he's terrible, because he's listening when you're there. And it's not a good idea to do that. That's all.
Did you have any indication whatsoever that Jackass James was one of her personas?
I don't think that I got to know her well enough or see her often enough to say that.
You didn't ask her for Jackass James to come out and talk to you, did you?
No, I tend not to ask for alternative people to come and talk to.
But you
Well,
asked
you
for
asked for Maria
Maria.
Sanchez to talk to
Thank you.
Only because you told me Maria existed. I had not heard of Maria. And, so I would say, is it possible to talk to her, particularly because she did give us a clue that Maria Sanchez is a very violent character.
Yeah, she's a hard one.
Guns and there are all sorts of things. So that, of course, I would want to say, is it possible to talk to this person? I'm not saying I want you to talk to me, but is it possible for me to talk to so-and-so?
Yeah, she's
And
a hard
the
one.
DSM-5 talks about a triggering event that causes someone who suffers dissociative identity disorder to trigger that event.
Say that again.
The DSM-5 talks about a triggering event, something traumatic that triggers that individual to change personalities when they're diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder.
It can be, there can be any number of triggers.
What trigger did you use to have her change to Maria Sanchez?
I do not consciously use a trigger. It could be I have brown hair that's a trigger. It could be no trigger that I have done. It could be looking at the light there and there's a green light there and a trigger is not, it isn't you press a button and that does it, but there are different things that have an association to a person and that may then elicit a memory and a flashback, and it could create a switch. But I don't invite a trigger.
But what you did here is, hey, can I talk to Maria Sanchez? And all of a sudden, fake accent comes out, she starts talking.
I don't even know if Maria Sanchez sounds, to me, she sounds Hispanic, and whatever talked to me sounded Russian without Russian words, but sounded Russian. I don't think Maria Sanchez and the Russian words were the same.
But what you said on direct is that she spoke Russian. You didn't say
No,
it sounded Russian.
I didn't. I said it sounded Russian. I would ask the jury to confirm this.
Why couldn't
I said it were not words.
I just get one question in? Why is it that Dr. Torres, and ask her, can I speak to Maria Sanchez, can't change? She says, I'm not able to change that for someone. But when you ask if she's able to change.
Magic.
Okay, those are my questions for today. We'll start tomorrow morning.
Magic. So all of that, just to confirm, they went through all of that just to establish that, well, at least what I gathered from all of those testimony is the fact that she being Dorothy Lewis, testified that Letecia's trigger, the first dissociative disorder, started when the cause of the disorder is based on her father's sexual assaults. So because of that trauma, that's why she is having dissociative episodes now. But the thing I want to know is, what was the trigger? Because it seems like if trauma was sexual assault, then you have to think. Sorry, not if trauma was sexual assault. If the trigger was the father, if that's the origin, then you have to imagine that the trigger. And I really wish that on cross-examination that they focus on this more, because I would imagine that if the father's sexual assault is the reason why Letecia was having that dissociative account, that would mean that the trigger would have been the sexual assault that she's claiming that happened with Quincy Brown. But of course, we know that didn't happen. So what I'm trying to say is, it seems to me that Dr. Dorothy Lewis believes that the sexual assault literally happened, even though it's been proven to have not happened. It was disproven on the phone, because Quincy Brown was not even in America at the time. He was in Mexico hiding out somewhere. And it was Eduardo or whatever his name is, whatever. So that's what I would imagine that the trigger for the dissociative personality disorder would have come from, for her to go into a psychosis and then do what she did. If that's the argument, but like I said, it falls flat completely when you think about it from this lens, because no one was sexually assaulting Letecia, or what triggered, what could have been the memory that would have ignited that or make her go into that psychosis. It would have had to be some kind of sexual assault that happened, or some kind of memory, or some kind of something that triggered that memory. It would have been, but there's nothing that's been present to have suggested that all through this case. So the next part that I want to go into is the next day they came back and were testifying on day 19. So this is the last day of her cross-examination, and this testimony here that she's giving is where she testified that when Letecia was younger, she wanted to be called Maria Sanchez. This was very interesting to find out, because I have never heard this testimony before. It wasn't something that was reported to the other therapist, to the other psychologists, which I would imagine that it would have been quite material for them to know, but it wasn't reported. So this was the first time of me hearing it. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and press play. If you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, make sure that you hit the like button, and because it would really help us out with the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's get into it.
Where did you get that note?
As I say, rather than take up the time of the court and look through all of this, I will find it for you. But I just noticed it in the past maybe several hours or so, and I can find it for you because...
Well, here's the deal. I only have a X amount of time to talk to you.
Right, yes.
And so I can't really let this linger around because it's pretty significant.
I think so, yes. Oh, dear.
Let me fast forward a little bit. There you go.
I came upon it in the past maybe 12 hours or so.
Well, do you know if it's something that the defendant told you?
No, it was not. That's what was interesting, that I had completely forgotten this, but I saw that someone who had been interviewed said when she was a child, at times she asked to be called Maria. That in and of itself is not a proof of anything, but it's a confirmation if you have a lot of other things that go along with it.
Well, it's certainly...
She looks evil. But anyway, just because you want to be called Maria as a child, that doesn't mean anything, because to be quite fair, it could even be her downfall, because when you think about it, she wanting to be called Maria could have been just the memory that she is now holding on to concoct this whole feigning, because I believe she's faking it completely. I believe she's completely faking it, but giving her the benefit of the doubt, she could have just relied on this memory of her wanting to, and that's how she came up with the name Maria. Also, don't forget the web searches that was made by her in February when she searched for Spanish names. Who knows? Maybe that's where the name Maria could have come from as well. Who knows?
Not in any police reports, correct?
As far as, no, it's not police reports.
It would be in a report that the defense gave you?
Let me fast forward a little bit.
Taking notes. Oh, here, again, I will be taking notes as I'm going through stuff and whatever. And here I have Letecia notes.
Dr. Lewis, Dr. Lewis.
Yes?
The way we have to do this is you need to read that to yourself and see if that refreshes your memory. And then once you've done that, I can ask you some questions, okay? Because I don't have that you have in front of you.
No. Again, these are simply what I took and labeled Letecia notes from relatives. Can't tell you exactly who, but here it says, Letecia called self Maria Sanchez as a young child. And I have a little explanation when saying retrospective malingering, because that, you don't do that. At 12, you don't call yourself Maria because later on you're expecting to do something where you're going to have to make some sort of excuse. So this is what one of her relatives had told us, that she called herself Maria Sanchez as a young child. This came as a surprise to me. I had not recalled it, but I was skimming it, and there it was.
And Dr. Lewis, you've testified hundreds of times, and you know that you need to turn over your notes and everything you rely on as an expert in the prosecution, don't you?
Is that a question?
Yes, it is.
No, when
You have
I...
obligations as an expert to turn over all the information that you use in formulating your opinions, correct?
Well, when I am sitting taking notes over different things, I do not necessarily even keep everything. I jot down something that I think may be important later, and I notice that I jotted this down.
And it's so important that you found out about it last night. You came in and decided to tell the jury about it today. Is that correct?
I came upon it last night, I believe before this morning,
And
yes.
it's so important you made an effort to put it in your report that you knew that the prosecution was going to get. Is that correct?
No, it is not. I sat when I was going over notes, trying to pull together things ages ago, and jotted that down because I thought, gee, that's odd. She had just mentioned Maria to me very recently, and somebody had said this when I wrote down L called self Maria as a young child. If I thought I was going to have to prove this particular statement to someone, I would have written down who said it or whatever. I was pulling together my thoughts at the time and going through and seeing what kinds of things seem to matter. And it is a note taken while I was going through hundreds of pages of notes, and to my surprise, disappeared. And I had no memory of having seen it before until I looked at it, skimming through it, and found it in the past, I would say, 12 hours or so.
It was until you realized you had nothing to corroborate your diagnosis, which she was Maria Sanchez, and you needed to come up with something. Is that right?
No, it was
Why
written.
was it that in your report, doctor? If it was that significant, that's the only corroboration you have. Why is it not in your report?
It is not the only corroboration that we have, sir. This is an observation as you go through hundreds of pages of notes and you see something there that you hadn't expected. And so I'll jot it down and think, gee, that's kind of interesting. But there are many other pieces of evidence that there were other times that that she apparently used other names and that she signed differently. But for example, there are notes where there are different names, but if you really study them, it turns out they were her names. They were before she was married, they were when she was married to one person, then to another. And I will write them down because what at first may look as if, gee, why is there this name? Did she use that? And then you're an idiot if you say, oh, yeah, she was in an altered state. Well, no, she was in an unmarried state, or she was married to a different person. So that when I'm going through things, I'll jot something down. I happened to jot this down because I thought, how come that early? I don't think I became aware of the Maria character until I had interviewed her.
Yeah, that's when everyone became aware of it.
Well, here,
Yeah. That family members, including her daughter, Harley Hunt, her husband, Al Stauch, had never seen any signs or any evidence that she had different personalities.
I can't comment on that because people's ability to recognize things, the ways things are asked make a difference. So I can't in general say, yes, this matters. No, it does not. This is interesting.
Well,
Somebody knows.
It matters because dissociative identity disorder is very penetrative, it's unavoidable. This was testified to by Dr. Leandro Torres. It's unavoidable. It's so debilitating to someone else's life that they cannot continue on with their life, maintain a steady job, etc. They are always in need of mental health facilities. So for Letecia to go this long without having some sort of episode and without anyone seeing her go off into a different personality, it matters a lot. And I'm extremely angry that that she actually said it. That's when everyone became aware of her. Oh, Alex Jackson. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, I was wondering what you meant at first, but yeah, no, I do see what you mean, Trajano. I don't like this doctor. I don't like this doctor, not because she is testifying in February for Letecia, but she is actively gaslighting me. Because I know what I heard from the other doctors, and what she had to say is so contrary to everything that the other doctors are trying to say. So contrary. But yeah, let's continue with this.
Before you go off on another tangent, let me finish my question, okay? You consider that there was no evidence by family members that she had no patients that she had dissociative.
That specifically, I did not think about that specifically because different personas are either recognized differently because of the sensitivity of the observer, or they don't occur in that setting, and they occur in another setting.
And it doesn't help your diagnosis with dissociative identity disorder, correct? Is that why you don't consider it?
No, it's interesting that they did not notice this. It may even be one of them who said this, who said, no, I never noticed anything different. And yet, one of these people said,
that I think we got what your note says, doctor. Okay.
Well, that could well be one of the people who said, I never noticed she was different, but, sometimes she called herself Maria. So that you're open to whatever comes your way. You try to jot down what seems important, and then you try to pull it together later. But there is no one thing that will say, oh yes, this person suffers from DID or does not. There's a whole constellation of different things that you look at, that you consider, and no one thing that matters particularly.
Let's talk about something that matters to you that you put in your report, okay? You had Ms. Stauch drew, I forget the name of the test, where they draw the clock and they have the hands of the clock. What's the name of that test?
I don't know, I call it clock.
We'll call it the clock test. Is that right with you?
Yeah.
So you had her perform the clock test, and she did horrible on it.
Well, she did something that I have seen before on with like older patients who have been actually demented. And
Demented.
I actually consulted Dr. Marikangas about it and others because it looks as though there is some kind of a defect in the ability to see certain areas. And so that everything was crowded into one area. And I have seen this in patients with dementia, and dementia can be caused by many different injuries. So that I was surprised. The other thing that is surprising is that I didn't know quite what to make of it. I knew there was something unusual, and I had asked her again, would you do this again? And she did a much better job of it. And then I remembered I jotted down L, because when she had done something with her right hand, and then I hadn't asked her to change hands at that point, but I wondered, why are these different? And one with the left hand had been done one way, and with the right hand another way, so that she functioned differently, and also she functioned differently at different times, which puzzles me. This is partly why I very much wanted to consult a neurologist, because I don't feel that I am familiar enough, skilled enough, trained enough to say this is the section of the optic area that I think is functioning differently at this time. But
did the thought ever cross your mind that she could be faking it, just wanting to have you have the opinions you have? Pretty easy, right? To
Yeah,
mess up
Doc.
the hands on the clock.
she didn't mess up the hands on the clock. She created one section of it. I didn't know until relatively recently that this was typical of certain people with brain dysfunction in certain areas. No, it did not occur to me that that was faking something, because afterwards, when I said, would you repeat this? Would you do it again? That she did a better job on it. And this is still a puzzle to me. And if I had the proper consultation, I would have
because
discussed
she
it
was
with
faking it.
neurologists and tried to figure out, because the optic pathway is a very complicated pathway in the brain. It turns upside down, it moves back and forth, and a neurologist is far better equipped to say, this is where things seem to be going wrong.
Did you know that she had performed that test before?
I did not know whether she had or had not.
Have you reviewed the state hospital reports, both the competency evaluation and the insanity evaluations, correct?
I'm not sure at which point, but I am not aware. I'm not aware of having seen that. That was kind of my last minute thought. Is there anything I can do that might show me any neurologic dysfunction of any sort? And so I said, would you please draw a clock for me? I didn't tell her which hand. I tend to just put something down and they pick it up. And I was staggered at what I saw, because it's a specific dysfunction. It isn't like trying to mess something up. It was in part of it. And then when I asked her to do it again, she did it better.
And doctor, I understand that you want the jury to hear what you have to say, but if you can just focus on my question and just answer it, okay? Did you review any prior tests that Ms. Stauch took with regards to this clock test that you've been talking about?
I don't recall seeing another clock test at that time prior to what I had done. No.
How convenient.
If I can just have a second.
How convenient. For reference, she has this clock test has been performed by Dr. Leandra Torres, who was one of the psychologists that evaluated her and says that she was no way that she was deemed that she was insane at the time because of the level of feigning. She was feigning so many times during her test as well as Dr. Grimmett's test that both of them were
736.
that both of them put it on
Single
notice.
speed, if I remember right.
Let me know how you're feeling in the chat as well. There is there's quite a bit of you logged in today, and I'm happy to see everyone here. Let me know how you're feeling in the chat. Also, don't forget to hit that like button if you like what you're seeing so far.
Okay, Dr. Lewis. Exhibits in this case.
I also have other clocks here that I had asked her to here are some.
Yeah, but
And I think these were done the same day. So it is a puzzle to me, and I don't pretend to, I don't pretend to be an expert on interpreting this, but
Well, let me show you this
Yeah.
exhibit,
Yeah.
736, okay? Do you see there in the top right-hand corner,
yes,
picture of the clock?
yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that?
I'm not, I don't recognize this as having seen this actual page before,
Okay.
but it is a clock, and where's the draw clock? 10 past. What is it? 10 past 11. No, it's
She did pretty good on that one, didn't she?
well, yeah, it's not 10 past 11 really, but it's I have others where she did better with me, and it puzzled me that at the time I said, "Would do it again and do it again," and it did improve, I am puzzled by this phenomenon, and I can't explain it to you, except it is unusual that that particular way of drawing it has been found in individuals with severe brain damage, actually.
Well, we were talking about insanity, doctor. We're talking about the time of the crime, correct?
We're talking about brain function at the time of the crime, and
So a test that was taken closer to the time of the crime would be more accurate as to what the brain function was happening at the time of the crime. Is that correct?
not necessarily.
So brain functions change over time?
Yes,
Like change after you plead not guilty by reason of insanity?
and before and during. It changed there. I was with her. And when she produced this, that was kind of my last fling at seeing, is there any sign of organicity? And then afterwards, when I asked her to repeat it for me right then and there, she did a better job. And then I kind of looked and I marked that she had been using her left hand and then her right hand or vice versa. And sure, it varied right then and there. And I can't pretend to tell you exactly why. I think that with the assistance of a neurologist, we could at least have an idea of what was blocked off during part of this. And
Okay, I'm going to stop you again, doctor, because we're getting away from what the question was, okay?
I just want to say, if you watch From, I'm not sure. Like, let me know if you guys watch the TV series From. But if you guys have seen that series, don't Letecia look like Julie from that series? Like, I'm guessing I'm saying it because of her hair, but I don't know. It just came to me just now. Like, it's like, hey, she looks a bit like Julie from. So I thought I said it. But anyway, let's get back to this.
On direct examination, you indicated that a bookcase fell on her and she had to go to the hospital and she had a head injury as a result of that. Do you remember saying that yesterday?
I remember reading it, yes, and saying it. Yes.
And that happened close in time to the crime, before the crime.
I don't remember if it was close in time. It was a while back when she was teaching.
Colorado, correct?
I don't remember where or the date, but you would have to tell me.
Misrepresenting the evidence. He was questioned about what case he fell in 2011. That's supported by the medical record. It's up to the jury to make a determination regarding whether or not any question or representation by an attorney misrepresents the evidence. The objection is overruled.
Let me ask you this. You know that she was examined 2 days after the crime for head injuries, correct?
I'm not aware of how she was examined or by whom then right after the crime. I would have to look at it if I saw it to refresh my memory.
Would it be significant to you if you saw that?
I would have to see what it said. It depends on what it said and how it said it and what they had done. So it could be.
Well, if she was examined by a sane nurse and the sane nurse was feeling her head and examining her head for injuries, would that be significant to you in your determination that she may have a head injury?
If it were there, it could be significant. However, you don't necessarily feel on the outside what happened. If you shake some head, there are little hemorrhages that occur in the brain. You would not feel that if you examine. Now, sure, if something hits you on the head, you like to feel because there will be a bump, but you can get a far more severe head injury by just doing that. And you can actually kill an infant, not deliberately, but by shaking the infant. And the brain goes back and forth in the cranium, and you will get little hemorrhages. And depending on where they are, you will get certain kinds of disorders in functioning. And I can't tell you exactly what they are. That's much more in the field of a neurologist. But
Hey, doctor, let me stop you again. Is it significant to you that a nurse examined the defendant 2 days after the crime and found no injuries to her head?
is it significant in what way? Meaning that there were no injuries? No.
And that's because you could speculate and say she could have had a brain tumor, she could have had hemorrhages because someone was shaking her. Is that what your opinion is?
She had other injuries previously, so that it's good if the nurse actually did this. I'm not aware of anybody's having felt her head. Maybe they did, I don't know. But it's that does not tell you enough. It tells you if there's a bump, you do know that something hit the skull. The other.
This lady is giving her way too much of a benefit of the doubt, like way too much. The next part that we're gonna go into is where Letecia had testified, where Lewis had testified in regards to Letecia, like she believes something has happened, right? For her to have cleaned up the crime scene and also had run away. She testified, she was asked questions around this, and she said that she believed that something that she believed that Letecia believed something terrible has happened, and that's why she was doing all this, not necessarily because she was not insane, but because she actually was insane, and she was actually in a state of psychosis in which she was trying to in which she believed it was a weird argument that she made, which we should go in right now and go and take a listen. It's around here, but yeah, let's take a listen, because this is how Lewis tries to justify the cleaning up of the scene, the running away from the police officers, and the running away to like try and hide away or evade law enforcement. This is how Dorothy Lewis tries to justify all of that by saying that it was all part of the psychosis.
Suitcase. She had the capacity to know right from wrong when she did that.
It would certainly seem she knew that this was something that should not have happened.
And does that corroborate the actual killing, that she had the capacity to form an intent to kill, the capacity to use judgment and reflection, the fact that she immediately stuffs his body in a suitcase afterwards?
I don't know for sure.
What about cleaning up the crime scene? After she stuffs his body in a suitcase, she goes back to the room and cleans all the blood off the wall. Not all of it. Does she have the capacity to know right from wrong when she's cleaning Anne's bedroom?
She certainly believes that other people will believe that she had done something horrendous or something terrible had happened. That's, I guess, as far as I can go right now.
Now, she then goes back to the storage room and throws a bunch of boxes on a green suitcase in the storage room. You've seen pictures of that?
I've seen a lot, so that I don't recall those particular pictures.
And then the police come about 10:09 that evening, January 27th, and they search the entire house. And her demeanor is calm, cool, and collected. And went to some friend's house. Makes those statements with her demeanor like that. Is that evidence that she had the capacity to know right from wrong?
I don't think that's evidence that she knew right from wrong. We don't even know whether she knew what she had done. I don't think that that's evidence she knew right from wrong.
What about, is it evidence of psychosis?
It certainly sounds out of touch with reality.
In a psychotic state, it's pretty obvious.
Come on.
No.
Looking around.
Wrong. No, sorry. That's television. No.
Okay. So someone in a psychotic state can act normal and have a normal conversation with a police officer, and their stepson is in the storage room underneath a bunch of boxes in a suitcase?
Particularly if the person does not know she has done that, or that this is what the status is. That we don't know what But there's something really odd about being in that a very calm sort of state. Here she has reportedly murdered a child she loved. This makes no sense. This is psychotic. Did she kill that boy? Did she think she'd killed him? Was it that boy? Did she remember what had happened?
Well, let's talk about the next day then, if she remembers. Because the next day, at 6:20 in the morning, she drives her Tiguan out of the garage and is gone for 10 minutes, and it comes back. Remember that?
I don't remember that specifically.
And then later that morning, at 8:30, she goes to pick up Al, her husband, at the airport. Remember that?
Yes.
For Young, could you find a reasonable breaking point in the next 5 minutes or so?
Sure, I can. When she leaves at 6:22 a.m., I think she might be looking to see if anybody's watching.
That's a speculation. I don't know.
Because when she leaves at 8:30, do you know who's in the car with her?
I'm assuming that that the body is in the car. Is that what you're referring to?
Absolutely. Body that you just said that she may have forgot about. She didn't remember killing and putting in the suitcase. Hide him in the storage.
Yes.
Gets the body out of the storage room, takes it upstairs, puts it in the back of the Tiguan, drives to the airport. Sound familiar?
Is that a question?
Yeah. At the time she does that, does she have the capacity to know right from wrong?
I don't know, because it is approximately then when she thinks that, at least what she says to some people is, she thinks that she can bring this body back to life. And she says that she brings him or tries to get him a hamburger. That ought to do it. And then I believe she even tries to get him ice cream. This is psychotic thinking. This is.
No, that's what she's saying. What actually happened is she drove directly to the airport, parked the Tiguan, left Gannon's body in the back of the Tiguan, rented another car, and now her went home. That's what happened.
Yeah.
What she's saying is psychotic because she wants you to think it's psychotic, correct?
I can't say that's correct. I can say you believe that's correct.
Oh my
All
God.
right, it's a good time to stop. Thanks, Judge. Dr. Lewis, we left off with the Tiguan being at the airport. You recall that this morning? Now, the fact that
So just for reference, everything that Letecia does has to be psychotic. Even the cleaning of the scene, that's a sign of psychosis. Having conversations with, and I know what he's referencing as well. He's referencing the million conversations that she has had with the police officers. That she had with police officer Jessica Bethel, that she had with Johnny Grusing on March. She was not. She apparently that was all psychotic. That you can maintain conversations in that state, and no, you can't. I'm sorry, you just can't. You just can't. It's really difficult to maintain a linear, clear thought because people can tell that something is not wrong. Something is not right. And every single time of watching Letecia going back and forth with Jessica Bethel, going back and forth with Johnny Grusing, the FBI agent, they could tell that Letecia was fine because they were asking her for information to find Gannon. They were not worried that her mental state was not all there. Well, maybe they were, but I have no idea. I would believe that they were more worried, they were more interested in finding Gannon than worried about Letecia's mental state. And I'm saying that because when you're going through psychosis, it's pretty obvious that you're not okay when you're talking. It's pretty obvious because your speeches sometimes might be slurred. You're not going to have a coherent thought. Your thoughts are basically all over the place. It's different every single time as well. So, but you are definitely not going to hold a conversation. It's and for her to make it seem like you are able to do these things is really concerning. I'm very surprised that she's endorsing all of this.
she moves the body from the storage room to the Tiguan and then to the airport, is that an indication that she has the capacity to know right from wrong?
I don't feel qualified to conclude that. She certainly had the capacity to move it from one place to another for
you
one
don't
reason.
feel qualified to say this, but you are literally lady. You're testifying that she is legally insane. So you are qualified to say whether she knows right from wrong. You have to be you have to be qualified to be giving these opinions. What do you mean you're not qualified to know if she doesn't know right from wrong? Just say she doesn't know right from wrong based on this. But that's the truth though. She does know right from wrong based on what Dave Young, the attorney I put out. She does know it. And I don't know, and this doctor is just scrambling and doing all she can to try and show that she doesn't.
Or another, and certainly it would seem to be for keeping it a secret of some sort. Whether or not she thought this was right or wrong, I just can't speculate.
Well, she knew that Al was coming home because she was picking him up. Correct?
As far as I know, yes.
She knew that she had to move the body before Al got home, right?
Perhaps. The body was hidden, so it could have been hidden somewhere else.
And she knew she...
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah, it was right there that they call her in it that she got find out. That's her bias right there. Because end of the day, why is she, if she doesn't know right from wrong, why is she trying to hide the body? She knows that she done something wrong, and she now has to make it. That's the classic sign of knowing right from wrong, cleaning up from the scene, getting rid of the body, doing all those things. That's classic sign of right from wrong. Why this lady is so averse to just admitting that is beyond me, because this is what I'm trying to say. I did, like, looking back on the Taylor business case, they evaluated there. She wasn't as bad as this. She actually wasn't. She wasn't great because she was trying to make it seem like you can take drugs and something, and she believed that the drugs impaired Taylor's business. That's what she believed in that trial. But she's just believing whatever Letecia wants her to believe. That's what I think is going on here with Dr. Dorothy.
Annan's body was in her T1, correct?
I know she rented another one, and it was in the T1, yes.
She thought this out, right?
Yes.
Rational thinking?
That's a leap. Thinking, yes.
Rational.
Was she psychotic when she's making these decisions to rent a car and leave the body in the T1 at the airport?
Again, speculation. I don't know.
We're now into January 28th, 2020. Al and her go home in the rental car, the Kia. You remember reading about that?
Yes.
And then about 4 p.m. that day, she leaves in the rental car and goes back to the airport. Do you remember seeing that?
Reading about it, perhaps, yeah.
Is it inconceivable that she's going back to check on the Tiguan to make sure no one's disturbing?
Any speculation is possible.
Is that rational thinking under the circumstances?
Don't know.
The body's in your car, you want to make sure no one's messed with it?
Body's in your car, you might want to avoid going anywhere near that car so that you're not involved with it. So that I think it would be speculating to say this is why or that's why. We don't know why.
That's fair. But we do know that she goes back to the airport once again on the 28th at 7 p.m. Correct? Remember that?
I believe you. I'm sorry, I don't remember the numbers or the times, but certainly seems likely.
She leaves the white rental car, the Kia, in short-term parking, keeps the keys to that car, and leaves the airport in the T1. Is that rational thought processes under the circumstances?
I have no idea why she's doing that. I can't say it's rational, irrational. She did it. It would be speculation without finding out more.
Well, is it evidence that she had the capacity to know right from wrong, collecting Gannon's body that way?
No.
She takes the Tiguan and leaves, puts her phone on airplane mode, and drives for several hours. And we're mapping her on her Life 360 app. You remember seeing that?
No, I recall becoming aware of it in one way or another, seeing or reading about it. Go ahead.
And as she's doing this, she's texting her daughter, Harley, don't open the door, don't talk to the police, that kind of thing. That evidence that she has the capacity to know right from wrong.
Again, it suggests that she has the capacity to know that that she could be in great trouble if this were not hidden. Right from wrong is such an abstract.
To make it philosophical.
Certainly, if she would have stayed with Gannon's body in his bedroom, that might be some good evidence that she didn't have the capacity to know right from wrong. Didn't think it was wrong to kill him, right?
Again, that's one interpretation.
And of course, that didn't happen here, correct?
She stayed with him?
Right.
She did not stay with him.
Because what she does is she eventually drives her Tiguan up to Palmer Lake, which is a small town north of Colorado Springs. If you're not familiar with it. She finds an isolated spot, drop the suitcase off on the side of the road. That evidence that she had the capacity to know right from wrong and trying to hide the body again.
Again, she had the capacity to know that she needed to hide the body. I don't know. I can't move on to yes, she knew right from wrong. That again, it's an abstraction, and I can't comment on knowing right from wrong simply from that.
Is that evidence that she's suffering some kind of psychosis? The fact that she goes to an isolated spot to hide the body?
Maybe.
Is it also evidence that she may not be suffering from psychosis? The fact that she knows to go to an isolated spot and hide the body?
Thank you.
Maybe.
Why you say maybe?
During this whole time,
Why you say maybe? It's evidence that this lady is not suffering from psychosis. The fact that she can, it is clear thinking. It might not be a smart plan the way that she executed it all, but the plan is still intelligent by its design. Technically speaking, like I said in the last episode, what she has basically done, she had essentially called to the police officers saying that Gannon was missing. She reported him missing, and then during this time that Gannon was supposed to be missing, this is when she started disposing of the body. So when everyone was looking for Gannon, and she was going on a media crusade saying that they'll find Gannon, etc., she was busy getting rid of the body at the same time. That's pretty smart. That's what anyone that should do, really. If you've killed someone, it's not a bad plan. So it's linear thinking, and during this time she was searching. This is where I think she may have been a bit loopy, but not that smart, when she went onto the Google searches and she started looking for plastic surgeries so that she can get her face reconfigured, so that she doesn't get recognized by authorities. That I could say maybe that's evidence of non-linear thinking, but that's one event out of thousands of others. That one event, that one isolated event where she makes Google searches looking for plastic surgeons, not spelling it properly, etc. That one event does not negate the fact that she hid the body in a suitcase, drove all the way to different parts of the States trying to dispose of it. Like, come on.
Seen with Harley and still controlling what Harley's actions are. Do you remember seeing that?
You would have to remind me.
She's multitasking. She's kind of controlling what's happening at her house, as well as getting rid of the body.
I'm sorry, I have not juxtaposed that, but if you clarify what she was saying to Harley, perhaps I can say something.
But don't talk to the cops. Don't talk to the police, that kind of stuff. Don't let them in the house. Consider that to be a form of manipulation?
Certainly a form of trying to control what happens.
Around midnight, between the 28th and the 29th of January 2020, she meets Harley close to Harley's place of employment. Ever reading about that?
Not specifically, but
And she leaves her Tiguan there. Harley then takes her back home in her car. The fact that she's thinking about leaving the Tiguan somewhere other than her own home, is that evidence that she has the capacity to know right from wrong?
again, it shows the capacity to know what will be regarded as incriminating or not in her best interest. Again, right from wrong is abstract, and I hesitate to comment on that specifically.
Well, I'll ask you this then. Did she know the fact that if there was blood in that Tiguan, it might be incriminating?
I would think so, yes.
Next morning, her daughter Harley gives her a ride back to the airport, where she takes the keys that she still has for the rental car, the Kia, that she left in the short-term parking the day before. And she tosses the keys to an Avis representative out on the sidewalk at the airport. That evidence that she has the capacity to hide the fact that she is no longer in that rental car and was in the Tiguan the night.
I don't know.
Her daughter Harley then gives her a ride back to where her Tiguan is, where it was at all night, by her place of employment. Massage Envy, you didn't know? Okay. And she then is talking to detectives at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office saying, I'm on my way. I want to come down and interview you. Remember that evidence?
Again, I've probably read it, but I don't specifically remember that, but I'll certainly believe you.
And she drives a Tiguan to the sheriff's office, which is right across the street from the courthouse. And on her way, she stops and washes the Tiguan. Ever reading about that?
Not specifically, but again, certainly I could have it. I just don't remember specific.
At that point, does she have the capacity to destroy incriminating evidence by washing the Tiguan?
Yes.
When she gets to the sheriff's office, she's interviewed. And this is what the story that you alluded to yesterday about Eduardo and the rape happening. You remember that story?
That I remember.
That didn't happen.
Everybody remembers it too. We're not going to get into the whole interview. But I do want to talk about a couple things that she says in that interview, okay? In that interview, she alludes to the fact that Eduardo took a suitcase. Remember that portion of the interview?
You'd have to continue on.
Weird, isn't it? You're describing being raped, your stepson's kidnapped, and by the way, the kidnapper took a suitcase.
It's wacky. It is
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think it might be an indication that she knew that Gannon's body was in a suitcase out in Palmer Lake at that time, and if someone was to find the body, she had an explanation as to how the body got?
Could be.
Pretty rational thinking, isn't it, under the circumstances?
I don't think much of what she was thinking was rational, sir. So that, again, that's a.
What about smart? Was that smart to tell the officers that?
Again, that's a judgment call. The whole thing is so convoluted and wacky that to call it smart doesn't quite hit the mark.
The other crazy thing that she says is, after he raped me and kidnapped Gannon, he just leaves the gun at the house and then leaves.
Yeah, that's great. That is crazy.
Yeah. But is it really crazy? Because she knows the gun is still in the house, and that's the gun that she used, and she has to have an explanation on why that gun was used.
I don't know if it was really crazy. It sounds crazy to me.
Or really smart, right?
Not to me, but
Setting up the story.
Yeah.
again, you're thinking more logically, I think, than we can give her credit for through much of this.
I think you're giving her way too much credit.
I
How about
find crazy
that?
what you find logical.
It's
How about-
crazy when people kill their kids.
It's crazy when you say Eduardo comes and rapes
It's crazy
her
when
and
people.
takes off.
That's a good point. It's crazy when people kill.
It's, the whole concept is crazy. If a little bit of it is seems logical that a gun was here or there, the whole story of Eduardo is crazy.
Yeah, that's why she changed it later on and came up with Quincy Brown and some other stories, right?
I don't know why. Because she realized it was crazy and then changed it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
People who are pathological liars, when they lie, they tend to have small crumbles of the truth in it, and they have no problem changing that lie to something else. Isn't that true?
This is what your understanding is of a pathological liar. I can't, I can't ascribe to that or not. This is what you believe.
What do you believe? You've interviewed hundreds of people on death row. Have you ever come across any of those individuals who may have not been honest with you?
Oh yes, from time to time, sure.
That may have been
have antisocial personality disorder,
May have.
where they're manipulators, they're pathological liars, they have no sympathy.
This is a bit of a fantasy, and
I don't know what's a fantasy about. I'm just asking you, have you ever come across something like that?
exactly like that, I would say no.
Never come across anyone with antisocial personality disorder?
Certainly, I've come across many people who have been so diagnosed.
And those are some of the criteria of antisocial personality disorder, are they not?
There are some of them.
Jump forward to January 31st, 2020, okay? Her family now has come to Colorado. Her aunt has rented a Nissan Altima from Denver and drove it down to Colorado Springs. Remember reading about that?
No,
Nothing crazy about that, right?
don't know the ultimate. But
That Altima, at some point on January 31st, a tracking device is placed on it, a GPS tracking device. You remember reading about that?
yes, I think so. Yeah.
And then her family, including her daughter, her brother, indicate that Ms. Stauch disappears for 2 hours that afternoon, January 31st, 2020, in the Nissan Altima. Remember where she goes?
You'd have to remind me. No,
She goes right back to that same spot in Palmer Lake where the body is. Is that evidence that she has the capacity to know right from wrong when she goes back to collect Gannon's body?
in my opinion, that's evidence of stupidity. If you want to cover up something that you've done, you don't drive back to the body. You just don't do that.
But she did.
Yeah, it's not too smart and not too well thought out, but she did.
Is it not conceivable that I didn't hide the body good enough? I'm going to go get it. I'm driving to Florida, better off in the Gulf of Mexico than where it was at. Is that inconceivable?
You've just conceived it so that clearly you
Come
thought
on.
I don't think it's the smartest thing to do or the best way to hide your implication in a death to drive back to where the
I
body
hate
has been
this.
placed.
I hate
Not
this.
smart.
I hate this with
Right?
this.
Criminals aren't the smartest people.
Necessarily panicky, not smart.
Not
You know what
smart
happens after that?
does not mean you don't
She
know
rents
right
a
from
van,
wrong.
And her and Harley take Gannon's body in the back of that van and drive to Pensacola, Florida. Surely you know about that.
This is when she drives with her
Right.
daughter,
That's something you remember from reading in the police reports?
from perhaps numerous sources.
Along the way, Ms. Stauch is able to rent hotel rooms. She's able to deceive the people at the hotel. So she works for the Ford Motor Company. We only need one room, one person, no pets. What else? You ever read about that?
Not specifically.
The whole trip to Florida, do you see any evidence of psychosis or any evidence that she didn't have the capacity to know right from wrong during that trip?
I have to say I see neither the capacity nor a lack of capacity there. It's to my mind, it's incredibly peculiar behavior to drive that distance with a body and the body of a child that you allegedly loved in the back of your car. There is.
I'm glad you used the word allegedly there because you're familiar with a search that she did on her phone that was later deleted by her that says, "I don't like my stepson." Remember that search?
Oh, so that was
I'm
real.
aware of the statement. I don't like my stepson.
Kind of contradicts what you've been saying, though.
Once. I think I only became aware of that once, but it could have happened again. I don't know.
So she takes Gannon's body and dumps it over a bridge in Pensacola. That evidence that she has the capacity to know right from wrong, and she once again is hiding Gannon's body.
Again, I don't know if that shows she knows right from wrong.
And then his body was discovered on March 17, 2020 by a Macon Ponder. You remember reading about that?
I remember reading that it was found.
Bridge inspector who inspects that bridge every 2 years just happened to be there on March 17, 2020, and he finds the suitcase.
Okay. No.
If that suitcase is never found, do you think we'd be here today on an insanity case?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
I can. No, we wouldn't be here. That's the thing.
I want to talk about the interview that you had with her, the forensic interview that took place over a period of 3 days in November, okay? I'm going to play some clips of those interviews with you. But before I do that, going into this interview, do you have any concerns that Ms. Stauch may not be truthful with you during the interview?
Of course.
Skepticism, right, that we talked about yesterday?
Of course.
And so with that, Your Honor, and some of these clips are shorter than others. I know you may be more comfortable sitting there, but if you want to get in your wheelchair and go somewhere else, we can do that.
Wherever I could see it more clearly, because I have not seen it as clearly or heard it as clearly as I would like. If there's a better spot, that would
There's a
be
TV
All
right
right.
behind you, and then the other TV's here.
So this is where the testimony ends. Well, it's not doesn't really end here. This, in fact, to be quite fair, there's a whole there's a whole part 2 of this. It's just that the audio in the court's acoustics were really bad. I couldn't hear anything or make out anything to try and pick out the best moments or to try and pick out the key moments from each of this from the testimony. So yeah, unfortunately, this is all we have to show for this witness. That was the whole cross-examination that was done. The redirect examination there was also redirect from this defense, where Lewis confirmed that there were similarities with someone of a border personality disorder and DID, that there were similarities with both disorders. So someone with borderline personality disorder can also have DID, that there were overlaps. That's what she was basically saying. So that's basically it. So I want to do something that I haven't done before, because when I do these live recaps every Sunday, we are live every Sunday from 4 p.m. If you're new here, from 4 p.m. on Sunday, we are live every Sunday. Every time I do these live recaps, I don't cover the opening statements or the closing statements. But for this particular case, right, I want to do something for the first time ever. I want to see what the defense came up in their closing arguments. I want to see what is that exactly how they closed off this complete shit show, really and truly, because I just want to see that. So I'm gonna go and play the closing arguments, but before I do go into closing arguments, I just want to go into the next case that we are covering, and that is the the Tennessee versus Blaze Taylor case. That is the next case that we are covering. It's a first degree murder case, because apparently he was trying to, she was pregnant. I don't know, she was pregnant with his child, and he didn't want to go through with the whole pregnancy. So he tried to get her to have an abortion. She didn't agree to it, and so it turns out that he was murdering a child. So I want to go through that case with you guys from next week, of the Blaze Taylor. I'll have more details from next week. It's a recent case that just received a guilty verdict, so I can't wait to dive into it and to do the live recaps and analysis of this particular case. All right, let's get back into the closing arguments for this particular case, for the Letecia Stauch case, because let's see what the defense has to say in their closing arguments.
On a hike up a garden of the gods, loving, kind, to less than 24 hours later. Brutal rage, 18 stab wounds, 4 blood force trauma, shot. This wasn't a pre-planned, calculated killing for some gain. This was a psychotic break fueled by rage, attacking a demon from the past. They cannot come up with a motive because there is no motive that makes sense, ladies and gentlemen. They have tried. They have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours trying to come up with one. They have gone through phones. They have gone through iCloud accounts. They have gone through Facebook messages. They've interviewed everybody who they can possibly think of to try to find some motive. None of what they have done in the biggest investigation in the history of El Paso County has come up with a motive. No one who they have ever interviewed has ever said that she ever had a problem with Gannon. No one who they have ever interviewed has ever said she was ever mean to Gannon. No one who they've ever interviewed or come across anything has said she's ever done anything wrong to Gannon until that horrible day when this happens. That is the evidence, and the most strong evidence to know this was not premeditated murder. This was a psychotic break. That is the only thing that makes sense. And when you can pull yourself back and peel back the layers of the anger over the act, at the anger over the deceit in which it happened, at the anger over Gannon's body being driven all the way to Florida, when we take those emotions back and we try to look at this rationally, the only thing that possibly makes sense is a psychotic break. There is no other rational explanation to understand why this happened other than that. He was a special needs teacher, elementary needs teacher. That's what she'd been her entire life, working with kids with special needs. She was a mother to Harley, did everything she possibly could for Harley. She was a wife to Al, and she was tried to be the best stepmother she could be to these kids. So much so that she was left with the kids for very long periods of time. In the months preceding this, when Al had gone up to Alaska, he had left his 2 kids in her care. He was gone. We were about as far across the country as you could possibly get. And based upon his relationship with her, based upon him seeing her as a loving stepmom, felt comfortable leaving his children with her alone in South Carolina. And he did that because he knew her, and he saw her, and he saw that relationship she had with Gannon, and he felt comfortable.
You don't need motive. You don't need motive. You don't need motive. You do not need motive to prove a case. I don't know why he's focused on this argument. I just wanted to get that out of my system. Let's get back into the closing arguments. I'm not going to interrupt after this.
Based upon what he had seen with her. He felt comfortable enough that when this was going on, he felt comfortable enough to leave to go to Oklahoma. Because what he had seen and what this photo shows is they had a loving relationship together until the evidence shows that she had a psychotic break. That something, mental illness from her past, got triggered, and there's a temporary period of psychosis. That's the only rational explanation that had been presented. And there's nothing else they can come up with as far as motive. Ladies and gentlemen, does it make sense that she may have Google searched maybe moving to Florida? Yeah. People have problems in marriages. Do people fantasize some about getting out by Googling stuff? But how would brutally murdering Gannon, how would stabbing him 18 different times facilitate that move? It wasn't. There's no rational basis behind the murder other than psychosis. The fact that she may have years before at some point in time done one Google search out of 1,000 saying, I don't like my stepson, that's not what I see there in that picture. That's not what I see there going on in the days leading up to this horrible tragedy. What it does seem to indicate, ladies and gentlemen, if we start looking at this time frame, looking at the reliable evidence that we have in front of us, is that somehow that fire has some type of trigger. Maybe some type of trigger that had been disassociated long ago. We have her starting meltdown right after this fire. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lewis used the term wacky a lot, maybe not the most scientific term, but when something seems irrational, when something doesn't seem to make sense, we have to consider mental illness, we have to consider possible psychosis. I would say that video that you heard up there, listen to the tenor of her voice, listen to what she is saying. She says, I'm freaked out, and when you listen to her voice, she is freaked out. And she's saying irrational stuff like, we're going to have to sell the sofa. Stuff like that to Gannon. That makes no sense there whatsoever. And then, importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we also see mania starting to settle in when we start looking at these timelines specifically. You're up there, they're texting back and forth, 10:15, Harley comes home, 10:24, 11:30, she's still talking to Al.
We're going to have to sell the sofa. They're basing their...
2:48, she's texting Al. 4:36, texting the school saying that her stepfather passed away. Her stepfather who had abused her was not, and you heard it from Dr. Torres at the state hospital, they are not doubting or disputing the abuse that she suffered growing up. And that's from Dr. Torres, who had investigated this, who had medical record provided, who had family members provided, who interviewed other family members, and she says the state hospital is not disputing the horrible trauma that she grew up with. And the person who she had suffered that horrible trauma from, that's who she calls and says dies at 4:36 in the morning. What is more important by this, ladies and gentlemen, important to look at, what is also that we see, what is she not doing? She's not sleeping. She is manic at this point in time. She is texting throughout the night.
All right.
2:48, 4:36, 4:36 again, 5:03, 5:49, 7:32. She is up the entire night and not sleeping. There is something going on with her head that is not seeming right. There's stuff going on through the day. The text messages back and forth. Harley leaves for work. Other conversations going on. And then they leave, they go up to Petco. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Young has tried to insinuate that all of this was some type of big preconceived plan, that she had made some decision earlier on at that point in time that she was going to kill Gannon. Ladies and gentlemen, does that make any sense? If she had decided at that point, early in the day, when everybody else leaves, Harley's left for work, she's just there alone with Gannon by herself, if there was a decision that was made that for some reason they cannot explain that she was going to brutally murder him, why is she taking him in the car and going up to Petco to buy Valentine's Day outfits for the dogs? That makes absolutely no sense why she would push back a timeline to just an hour or so before Lena got home, for some reason, unbeknownst to anybody, commit this brutally horrific act. Mr. Young tried to comment a lot about the hydrocodone. Be very careful when they try to put facts in their opinion or what they would like them to be, that was not provided by any of the witness testimony. Dr. Ignacio testified that there was hydrocodone in the system. She never made any assertions about how much, whether it was a dangerous level, whether it was inappropriate, whether it would have been affecting him whatsoever that way. All she said is, this was a tox screen, this came back. That's Mr. Young's opinion that somehow this was an overdose of hydrocodone, but there was no evidence of that by their expert. And there was no basis that would be for a brutal, horrible attack on a young 11-year-old boy that she'd just been hiking with up there 24 hours earlier. Something is going on in her mind. Something is.
It just hit me when I was listening to this defense closing arguments. I'll get back to it, but I'll just quickly say this: they're trying to argue that the father dying was a triggering event, that the stepfather dying was a triggering event for her to go into the psychosis, because that would be another switch to turn it on, and then from there she then goes off and then would go into a psychotic episode, in which led to Gannon's death. I don't buy it though, but that is what they're trying to sell.
They're losing it, and something horrible occurs in the basement where there was a brutal attack. The brutality of the attack, ladies and gentlemen, I would say is the strongest evidence in this entire case of a psychotic break. That type of violence wouldn't be needed to kill an 11-year-old boy. Gannon weighed 80, 85 pounds, 11-year-old kid, not the biggest 11-year-old kid, not the strongest 11-year-old kid, fun, nice kid, what do we know about him? He likes to play a lot of video games, but not needing this type of brutal, horrific rage to kill him. And there is no other, again, explanation other than the psychotic break. Lena then comes home, and ladies and gentlemen, look on that video. Lena wasn't pushed outside. Lena wasn't allowed. Lena came in the house. She's in that house for about 10, 15 minutes, and then she goes out and gets on her bike and leaves. The idea that Lena was never allowed in the house is a fantasy that is not supported by the evidence, that is not supported by any other videos, okay? That is Mr. Young's opinion, but look at that video. You see her going in the house. You then see about an hour later, Harley coming to the house. And we know that Harley came in the house, and Harley actually went down in the basement. Why do we know that? Because she changes out of her uniform before going to the dollar store. So there is nothing in there that these kids were kept out of this house, and there is nothing to indicate that this was pre-planned that would keep this type of information away from them. What is going on in her head? We don't know. But here's the important thing, and here's what Mr. Young is trying to do. He is trying to introduce antisocial personality disorder into this. Because I would state to you, ladies and gentlemen, there are only two things that account for her actions at this point in time, for the remainder of this day and the days preceding, is either disassociation, where she has put that memory of this brutal attack of what she did to Gannon someplace that she doesn't have access to, and she doesn't understand what's going on or where Gannon is or what she had done to him, or antisocial personality disorder, that she's some type of psychopath. Mr. Young, remember back to Dr. Torres, tried to interject many times with Dr. Torres the possibility of antisocial personality disorder, and Dr. Torres was firm. No, she does not meet the criteria for antisocial personality disorder. One, there's no past criminality with her. That's an element that you need for antisocial personality disorder. Other, people with antisocial personality are unempathetic to people and don't care about people. Again, for her entire career, she was a special needs teacher, teaching kids, helping kids who have disabilities. Through her whole life, that had been her career. That is not a psychopath with antisocial personality disorder. That it could be somebody with a dissociative disorder, either DID or borderline personality disorder with dissociative features, who has kept horrible trauma in her past behind her and is trying to make the lives of kids with special needs better for them. That is somebody with empathy who does that whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I would put before you the strongest evidence of disassociation going on here. Look at the body-worn camera of the sheriffs when they come in that night looking for Gannon. The horrible, most horrible, brutal attack has happened before there. Gannon is in the house in the suitcase. It has all been recently covered up. She's there with her daughter, she's there with Lena, and she's acting and presenting herself to these police, laughing, joking, being incredibly friendly, just after this has happened. Because at that point in time, she has disassociated the horrible act that she has committed.
Wow.
There's no other logical explanation for how that she is doing that. And when you go back and look at these timelines, ladies and gentlemen,
have you ever met
and go through them? What is really important during this whole time, she is not sleeping at all. For the whole time here that this is all going on, you see activity going on her phone or things that she's doing all through the night. She is in a manic situation, and her mind is not working. Again, we heard Dr. Lewis talk about irrational things that she is doing that doesn't make any sense. Ladies and gentlemen, it makes no sense for somebody who is pre-planned for whatever reason, whatever motive, to brutally kill Gannon, to then report him missing right away, and then in a matter of 3 days later, go into the police with a completely illogical, incoherent story. You heard different witnesses.
She's a bad
Ms. Stauch
liar.
was an intelligent, above average intelligent
I'm sorry,
woman,
being a
a
bad
smart
liar
woman,
does not mean
everything like that. To go in,
I'm sorry, being a bad liar does not mean that you're psychotic. Come on. You're just a bad liar.
only 2 days later, and sit down with the police and come up with the ridiculous story of Eduardo is not the actions of a sane, rational person. It is irrational belief. Even children know. If you keep saying different stories, you're not going to be believed. Even looking back at the little boy who cried wolf, which we teach children, if you keep making up things, then you're not going to believe. She changes her story, not only completely different, not only with no explanation as to really why she had made up the prior story to one that she is changing now, but comes up with this ridiculous thing that she met this Eduardo, that he was just going to come over and fix the carpet for free. She's not even planning on paying him, that somehow he is in the garage when they get there, that he then takes her down into the basement and rapes her for an hour, and that he takes Gannon in a suitcase and leads out of the home. That are not the actions of somebody who is sane and logical. That is completely irrational to believe that that kind of thing could possibly be believed.
Oh my heavens.
Her actions, I would say, continue to be irrational.
I can't
She
believe
keeps
this.
changing her story. She keeps giving different accounts. Gannon is placed in the suitcase, driven all the way to Florida. She goes through Louisiana. She goes through all kinds of East Texas, all kinds of places where people are not around, deserted areas, long areas of desolation, many places where that suitcase could have been hidden and never been found. And she goes all the way to Pensacola, Florida, and drops it off at a dry space under a bridge right near a major city. That's not the actions of somebody who is rational, who is trying to hide that away. You then goes to South Carolina, and you can look at the Google searches that she performs in South Carolina. Face transplant near me.
I knew
Like she's Googling for a McDonald's or a restaurant that's very close to her. She's going to pop up, then she's going to go over there and get an entire face plant to change the way she looks. Those are not the actions of a sane and rational person. Those are the actions of somebody that is delusional. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say all of these pretext phone calls with Al are the actions of somebody who is delusional. Listen, go back and listen. Listen to those February 14th phone calls between her and Al. Listen to how her voice and tenor changes between phone calls. Listen to how her emotions switch rapidly during the phone calls with Al, and her stories switch rapidly that no sane, rational person of overintelligence could possibly expect anybody to believe. She is freaking out, and she is delusional in the thought that anybody is going to believe all the different variations that she's trying to sell them. None of that is rational. None of that makes sense.
And the worst part is people would actually believe it. No wonder
so
why
again,
no wonder why the jury
to
took so long
is why.
in deciding this case.
What
No
was going
wonder
on,
why.
What preceded this. And looking,
It's compelling.
It's going to end up in the mental health experts. And I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Lewis. She is 85 years old. She has been doing research, treating, evaluating people with serious mental illness for over 60 years. She's one of the foremost experts in the country on dissociative identity disorder. She has been published in peer-reviewed journals well over 100 times. Things that educates other psychiatrists and things that educates other doctors, she has authored and produced. She has done, she has the HBO documentary. They don't go just to quacks to do an HBO documentary. They went and they did a documentary on her because she was groundbreaking in her field. Has she consulted on other stuff with Robert De Niro and so forth? Yes. Not because she's a quack, because she has explored and she knows more about this subject than almost anybody else in the country. Has she, in her age, some of the details, the minute things in the discovery, get lost a little bit in her memory? They do. And you saw that up on the stand when she was testifying. I'm not disputing that. But what she has is the decades and decades of experience with this, the decades and decades of dealing with people with severe mental illness who commit heinous acts. She has that experience to rely upon, and she had 14 hours of interviews with Ms. Stauch to talk with her, to base her opinion. She had notes from family members, other types of things to show this, and in her expert opinion, is legally insane. She wanted the EEG and the MRI to possibly know if there was also organic brain damage going on here. There was some type of brain trauma that was contributing to the mental illness of Ms. Stauch. But what you heard at the end is she did not need those type of things to make the diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, which she was confident on and she believes upon. Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you, do not discount her decades of experience. Do not discount her expertise, okay? They acting that, a woman who has pioneered this, a woman who has made her life on this, a woman who has been peer-reviewed over hundreds of times in different articles on this subject, is willing to throw that all away to come down here at a substantially reduced fee to testify is ludicrous and it's insulting. They pay their experts just the same as we do, okay? And that's why I asked their blood spatter expert, his fees. It wasn't acting like there was anything wrong with that. It's just to show both sides hire experts, both sides pay experts. Just because the expert isn't getting paid doesn't mean that they are money-grubbing liars, okay? Experts in this type of thing, they come and testify, they charge money, they charge a fee. She actually reduced her normal fee to come down and help with Ms. Stauch and to do this evaluation. And what did she tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Ms. Stauch, of all the hundreds and hundreds of different mentally ill people that she has ever dealt with, is one of the most mentally ill persons that she's ever dealt with. And what else is she saying? I think this is key. Pay very close attention. She's not endorsing that it was definitely Maria that did this. She's not endorsing how Maria is saying this happened. What is she saying? Ms. Stauch has, in her opinion, more than likely, disassociated the memory of the homicide because she can't bear to deal with it. That was actually a very good question by Mr. Young on it, and I think there's a lot of validity to that. Ms. Stauch accepting the idea that she committed this brutal, horrible homicide in the manner that was done, smashing that 11-year-old's head in, and not deal with it. To accept that fact in her mind would crush her, would crush her soul, would crush her identity, and so she has come up with all of these delusional fantasies trying to come up with some other thing that may have happened. And listen to her voice, listen to the tenor when she's describing that. When she's talking to Dr. Lewis, I can't remember if it's Dr. Lewis or Dr. Torres, about the different versions she's given, that she was coming up in her mind, hoping and believing it was somebody other than her who did this. The facts, ladies, and we're not disputing that, ladies and gentlemen, it was her. But she was not in her right mind when she did it. And you heard Dr. Lewis state that. And you can look at the evidence and you can look at the other things that go around to realize that is the only reasonable, rational conclusion as to how this horrible thing happened was a psychotic break. Even Dakota Lowry, who when he finally realized that his older half-sister actually did this, the first thing that came into his mind, based on what he knew of his half-sister, was there had to be some type of psychotic break that had happened. That there could be no other explanation as to why it did it, and those are people that knew her and that have grown up with her. I also want to talk a lot, or some, about Dr. Torres. And it is what is important, ladies and gentlemen, to know with both Dr. Torres, Dr. Gray, and Dr. Grimmett is none of the experts that you have heard from that did any type of evaluation think that there's no mental illness going on here. Okay? They all agree there's some type of mental illness. They just disagree over what to call that mental illness. We have Grimmett and Torres and Gray diagnosing her with borderline personality disorder, which is a significant mental illness, which, as you said, comes from right on the border between full-blown psychosis and a neurosis. Okay, it's the most serious of all the personality disorder, and it's so serious because there are such prominent features of psychosis that go along with it. Psychosis where people hallucinate, psychosis where people become delusional, psychosis where people stop becoming irrational. All of that stuff can come and go in people with borderline personality disorder. And it comes and goes according to DSM-5, according to Dr. Torres, according to Dr. Grimmett, when people with borderline personality disorder start to experience high stress. That is why Dr. Niederhauser was important. It was not because Dr. Niederhauser made any type of diagnosis or anything with that, but she came to Dr. Niederhauser because he was experiencing high stress and high anxiety that was causing her to be unable to perform at work. The stress and all of that was mounting. You can look at her Google searches. The Google searches leading up to this. For whatever reason, her stress in life was becoming overwhelming. She felt underappreciated. She felt like running away. She felt like leaving. She felt like this was all too much on her plate, that there was nobody there to help her. And you heard from Dr. Torres about how people with borderline personality disorder feel stress much different than everybody else. Things that would not be normal stressors for all of us can become extremely stressful for somebody with borderline personality disorder. And the other thing that was important that Dr. Torres, we talked about quite a bit, is that there's a lot of the same things, the same type of horrible childhood trauma, the type of trauma where you have one parent who is molesting you and another parent who won't do a damn thing about it, that can cause either dissociative identity disorder or borderline personality disorder. They both come from the exact same environment that Dr. Torres said Ms. Stauch grew up in. That type of environment. is what can cause people to have borderline personality disorder, which then under periods of stress and anxiety can become psychotic. And I think one of the other things, and I think is something to look in, and something I want you guys to think about when you go back in that jury room, is something that Dakota Lowry said at the end. We don't know exactly all the intricacies of the trauma, of the abuse that Ms. Stauch suffered. We don't. Some of that she knows about, some of that she's come to remember, some of that is locked away, some of that is hidden by other family members who don't want to admit it. But what did Dakota talk about when he was a kid, and after his stepdad has died, and his mom had moved on to another abusive alcoholic in the home, and Ms. Stauch could come visit him? What would she do? She would leave him with knives to protect himself from something or someone. And the fact you can draw that Ms. Stauch sometimes as a kid going through that trauma either had to protect herself with knives or fantasized about having a knife to protect her. And then you have the connection between Gannon being stabbed 18 times with a knife. Some of these things are hidden. Some of these things are hard to look at, but there is that association there between what we can assume was some of the childhood trauma that Ms. Stauch suffered, how she dealt with it, and how this horrible thing happened to Gannon. And I understand that Dr. Torres didn't think she was insane, but you can't discount the fact that Dr. Torres readily admitted borderline personality disorder can be a serious mental illness. People with borderline personality disorder can suffer psychosis. People with borderline personality can become irrational. People with borderline personality disorder can disassociate things that the whole person cannot deal with. And that disassociation explains all of these crazy cockamamie lies. It is a fantasy on Ms. Stauch to try to explain this horrible action that she cannot rectify in her home with. And whether you call it borderline, whether you call it DID, I think Dr. Lewis was correct. That is not necessarily the important thing. What the important thing is look at the facts overall and realize this must have been some type of psychotic action going on, because normal people, mentally healthy normal people, don't one day go on a hike, take smiling photos, and the next day stab a kid 18 times for no apparent reason. And no matter how much Mr. Young would like her to be antisocial personality disorder, and he would like that because that takes insanity off the table, none of the evaluators ever have diagnosed her with antisocial personality disorder. None of the diagnoses ever have even had the rule out antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial personality disorder is something that is always considered at the state hospital, but there are criteria, and she did not meet it. No matter how many times in different ways Mr. Young tried to act, asked Dr. Torres about it, she was firm and said, no, that is not the diagnosis that we have given her. That's not the diagnosis that Dr. Gray gave her. It's not the diagnosis that Dr. Grimmett gave her, and it's really not the diagnosis that Dr. Lewis gave her. So all the antisocial personality disorder talk is a smokescreen. And when you take the antisocial personality off, the only thing that explains her conduct afterwards is disassociation, is disassociating from the horrible thing that she has done, and she's trying somehow to fix this or to get out of it. The other thing that I want to talk to you, and it's important, that was very apparent with Dr. Torres, Mr. Young would like you to believe that the only time somebody is legal insane if they commit the crime and they just stay there saying, yep, it was me, I did it for these reasons. Dr. Torres and the jury instructions from the court state somebody cannot know right from wrong, but still recognize that their conduct was criminal when it occurred. And so you heard from Dr. Torres, just because somebody in a state of psychosis, in a state of insanity, commits a horrible murder and then tries to cover it up, the covering up of the murder does not preclude insanity. And she talked about how there are cases that she has had where somebody was insane who then tried to cover up the acts that they've done because they didn't want to suffer the criminal repercussions. They are not mutually exclusive. That's not coming from me. That's coming from the instructions that you have from the court. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have been above and beyond in this. And we are very grateful for the time that you guys have given us, the thought that you guys have put all into this, the sacrifice in your lives that you have made through this long trial. I'm not going to rehash every detail on here. You guys know it. You guys understand it. You guys have heard the experts. You guys can put all this stuff in there together. We are asking you to find her not guilty by reason of insanity. We're not saying set her free. We're not saying let her go. We're not saying don't hold her responsible. We're saying for you to take into account the mental illness that she suffered and send her down to CMHIP, where you see how it is down at CMHIP during those interviews with Dr. Torres, where she's shackled fully, where there's constraints, where it's a locked facility, and that's where Dr. Torres told you if you find her not guilty by reason of insanity, that's where she is going, where there is repercussions, but there is also treatment for the mental illness that she has suffered from her entire life. The other thing that is important, I just want you guys to remember, is the burden of proof. It's not whether you decide, oh, I think that she was psychotic at the time, is have they presented enough evidence before you that you can say, without a doubt, there was no way psychosis was involved here. Have they completely disregarded that? Have they completely wiped it out? And I, ladies and gentlemen, I would put before you with all the different doctors diagnosing with some serious mental health illness, with their witnesses, they called diagnosing with a mental illness that has transient periods of psychosis, when psychosis appearing to be the only rational explanation, but no other motive for this horrible thing, with the overkill that was involved here, with the irrational behavior afterwards, even up and through some of these interviews, even up through some of the trial, all of that points to mental illness. And in no way, shape, or form have they disproven that. And it is their burden. And so if you believe that it is possible that this occurred in a state of psychosis, your legal duty, which you were sworn to do, is to find her not guilty by reason of insanity. And that is what we were asking you to do. Thank you.
Councilor Perch, please.
All right, so I have done a poll in which I want you guys to rate that closing argument. What do you think of that closing argument? Let me know in the poll. But yeah, so civil aside, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the stream. She says, what are the chances that Letecia has kept up with the switching alters for the past few years in prison? No way she'll be able to use this as a defense. I think pigs will fly because before she was free. That's a very, very good point that you brought out. I never thought about this. And I would imagine that the minute that she went into prison, she must have thought, okay, it's all done now. I'm going to be in here for a while. I might not win my appeals at all, anything like that. So she probably hasn't kept it up at all. And I think that might actually do her in. I think that will actually reveal a lot about her, because if it comes up that all those times that she was in prison, because they will have to do a second evaluation, because I doubt that it will be Dr. Dorothy Lewis that does this again. So it might be another psychologist or a psychiatrist, but whoever is doing it, they're going to have to they are going to look into the prison records, and I doubt that they will find anything in there that would be supportive of her having this autism. She might be well behaved during prison and conforming to the rules, because which is what's needed in a psych evaluation. Can she conform to the rules, etc.? If that's the case, she's not legally insane. And that could be the case. I don't think she has this. But I will say this, on my own personal opinion, I do think that the jury were persuaded by that closing argument, because of the pure fact that the defense highlighted the death of the death of Letecia's stepdad. I think that played a part, because they might be wondering how on earth did Letecia react to all of that? How did she cope with that? And the fact that they also said that Letecia was staying up all night, etc. I do think that is a big part of psychosis. That if you're going through a psychotic episode, you won't be able to sleep. Your sleep pattern is really whack. I remember when I went through my episode, I didn't sleep for at least 4 to 5 days, if memory serves. I did not sleep at all. I journal everything. So I stopped journaling as it was approaching the weekend before my latest psychosis that I just went through in March. That's when I stopped journaling. And there was 4 days, or at least three to 4 days out of that, because I journal when I wake up. And I write down the time that I wake up, etc. I was doing that back then, and there was no journaling at all for a couple of days. So that's how I know that the psychosis, that when it hit, I wasn't sleeping at all. I wasn't sleeping. So by the defense highlighting that was pretty good from them. That was pretty good from them to highlight those things right there, and kind of, because that would confuse the jury quite a bit. That would make them think, what was she actually going through at that point? And the stories that she just came and told the police, told the investigators, Johnny Grusing, told Jessica Bethel, or all the investigators, what would they have thought, right, at the time? Like, not only what would they have thought, but also not only what would they have thought, but also wondering at the same time, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, what was she thinking when she went up and told the police all these things? Was it psychotic thinking in the sense that, because I don't think you can keep a linear conversation going. I don't think you can keep that going. If you are in a state of psychosis, I think that's not possible. I think you're very erratic, all over the place, and I'm speaking from experience. But it's different for everyone. Which is what makes it very complex. So this new trial. Let me read this from Civil Psych. She says, I wonder what the process is if she decides to use a different defense. Can the prosecutor bring up the fact that she pretended to have the idea? If she uses a different defense, they're gonna bring it up. But I think that she is gonna use DID again. I think she's gonna I think she is gonna use DID again though, because I can't see her going. She's too smart to know to change anything up. You know what I mean? I don't think she's stupid. I think she's gonna keep with the same defense. She's gonna think, I'm gonna convince them, because what she is a pathological liar. That's what she is, and that is something that her defense and the psychologists have to get the grips of. She's not deluded or she's not psychotic. She's just a pathological liar, and people that are pathological liars are not psychotic. Just because she's lying very badly does not mean that she was going through an episode, which was the most annoying part to witness in all of this, because they were trying to make it seem like, because she was going through an episode, because they were saying that she was going through an episode, that's why she was lying. She made up a story that didn't make sense because she was trying to come up with something on the spot without having, which is what happens when you're a pathological liar. You're not going to have a coherent story. And just because you know that you're lying by changing your stories around a lot does not mean you're being psychotic. And that's they are gonna do this again, and I think they're gonna confuse. I don't know. I something just tells me that it might be hung jury this time around. Something just tells me. I'm saying that, I'm saying that with the utmost care, because I know how juries are. I've seen them make some weird decisions sometimes. It's very difficult, especially with these cases. This is not like this DID case, especially it's straightforward for us because we can see it. It's pretty straightforward. But when you're in that room deliberating and people are bouncing off ideas, it might not be that straightforward, especially if they produce the same evidence that they're producing in this case. But anyway, Silver Sykes says, the thing I can never get past with her is why. I know she wanted Al's attention, but why use the knife and pills and the firearm, etc.? I think she wanted more than Al's attention. I think Al did something wrong that week, and then she decided it could be as minute as that. It could just be the fact that Al just chose to pick a new job, and I do think that might have a part to play in this whole thing. That is because Al picked a new job, and she could have done it just for that reason. She's a psychopath. I mean, sorry, not psychopath, but she's a murderer. Like, they don't make sense. They don't make sense. But anyway, I'll leave it there. I've run over the time by 15 minutes. I usually close up the show by 6 p.m. Eastern time. I usually close up the show. But yeah, I kind of ran over. So head over to ketchupcourt.info where let me go and share the screen with you guys, where you can find the trial reports for the Letecia Stauch trial. This is the Hines report for the Letecia Stauch trial. You can find out a quick and easy way to catch up with the case. With our trial reports. Don't forget to sign up for the mailing list to receive more information about the cases that we cover. And also, if you have a case that you want us to cover on here, head over to the contact us page and let us know. Give the details, the case name, the background of the case, etc., so that we know what to look for, because we are always covering cases on Source and Order every week, every Sunday from 4 p.m. Eastern time. Source and Order every Sunday from 4 p.m. Eastern time. I cannot wait to be back next week. Like I said, we are covering the Blaze Taylor trial, Tennessee versus Blaze Taylor. Jade Benning was the girlfriend of Blaze Taylor, who unfortunately lost her life. I don't know anything about this case. I haven't watched any bit of it like I do on Source and Order. I don't watch anything of the case. I haven't seen anything of the cases that I do cover. I go into it blind. So I would love to know how this whole murder unfolded, or what has been said, so that I know what's going on. But based on the charges, the lady was pregnant with his child, and he didn't want to keep the child, so he didn't want her to keep the child. She wanted to keep she wanted to keep the child. He wanted her to have an abortion. He rejected that. So what did he end up doing? He ended up going on to kill her so that he can kill the child. So it's a double homicide, so to speak. I cannot wait to get into it with you guys next week. So yeah, make sure you tune in from next week from 4 p.m. Eastern time. All right, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for using the chat. Civil Psych trial channel. Love to have you guys. Love having you guys here, and everyone else that have viewed the chat. If you are a lurker, that's okay. It's all good. Hopefully you have enjoyed this coverage. Hit the like button on your way out. If you're watching on replay, I made it this far. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you have enjoyed. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take good care of yourself. Stay saucy. Bye for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another Ketchup Court live stream. Make sure that you smash that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button to be notified of our future live streams. We go live regularly, bringing you case updates and recaps of ongoing trials. So make sure you hurry back on the next live stream. We also have more content on the channel that you can binge on. Check out the playlist that we have showcasing all of these contents. Without further, I go by the name of Heinz, your friendly neighborhood ketchup man, and I'll see you back in court.